salmon. It's probably one of the most popular seafoods out there, and for good reason. It's really delicious and pretty simple to make. So welcome to Cooking with Parker. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a delicious skin-on salmon. I'm also going to break down the difference between wild-caught versus farm-raised salmon. I'm going to finish it with a nice Beurre Blanc. So it's going to be a great time. Can't wait to show you all this, and let's go.
So to start off, I got wild-caught salmon on my right and farm-raised salmon on my left. So there's different pros and cons to each one. Different health benefits, environmental issues. Mostly today I just wanted to do a side-by-side taste comparison and determine if the $4 price per pound increase is worth it. I'm also using the tail end pieces. So a lot of people throw these out or want this nice thick cut center pieces, but there's nothing wrong with this tail end as long as you know what you're doing. Don't overcook it. Just seasoning this with salt and fresh ground black pepper. Make sure you flip it over and hit the skin side as well. You can remove it, but I find it easier to remove afterwards, or personally I prefer a nice crispy skin. I'm going to hit it just with a little touch of olive oil. Make sure you rub that in. Again, flip it over, make sure you get nice full coverage of olive oil. This will give it a little bit of flavor and also help keep the salmon nice and moist. Go ahead and turn on my induction burner to medium high and add a little bit of vegetable oil to the pan. So induction is a great tool to have that actually heats up with like kind of electromagnets. I don't completely understand the science, but just know it works great, really gets a nice hot real quickly and keeps a nice consistent heat. Usually want to make sure your pan is nice and hot before you add any food to it. This will just help keep it from sticking and get a nice color and texture early on. So put my salmon and skin side down. Cook your salmon most of the way on the skin, and with these tail pieces they cook pretty quick, about 5 minutes on the side before I went ahead and flipped them over. And I actually reduced my heat down, so we're kind of cooking it on a medium at this point. Still want to develop a crust on that side, especially if you're not going to eat the skin. There's no shame in using a thermometer and cooking, even for salmon. So normally I just go by kind of touch and timing, but decided to temp this out. So for wild caught, I'm going to cook this to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The farm raised, since it's a little fattier and stuff, I'm going to cook it to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Just gave it a couple more minutes since it was thicker. And then once they're both reached the temp I want, get a nice texture, kind of touch it. It should be firm to the touch with a little bit of give, and then that salmon is going to be ready to go, cooked perfectly. The FDA does recommend cooking the salmon to 145 degrees, but they also don't want us to eat rare steak, so what do they know? Just as long as you follow some guidelines, you should be safe from foodborne illnesses. So I used my fish spatula since it was starting to flake apart. Right, let's go ahead and compare the wild caught versus the farm raised. A little bite. All right, now try that. Okay, so I would say the wild caught does have a little more robust flavor. It's a little stronger, and texture's a little more pleasant than the farm raised, but for the $4 difference, not quite sure if I would always go with the wild caught. But if you're going to a restaurant, most of the time you're getting farm raised anyways, so that's kind of where I land with that little test. Shared this with my sister and her fiance. He preferred the wild caught and she liked the farm raised, so it's all personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and make our Beurre Blanc sauce, or I think Beurre Blanc in French. So got this recipe from Sauce's book. It's a great book by James Peterson. Really tells you everything you need to know. Made a couple alterations. Generally you start with shallots. I don't have shallots. I always have garlic on hand, so I just use that instead. And then I'm adding 2 ounces of white wine. Traditionally it's made with a Muscadet wine. I didn't have that. I had some Pinot Grigio, so I decided to use that instead. And then put my garlic cloves in the wine, let it start reducing. Grab a few lemons. I'm just gonna go ahead and slice these in half and then use my lemon squeezer to get all the juice out. Traditionally you just use a white vinegar, but I think the lemons, although some of the flavor is gonna be cooked out, just gives a nice kind of extra depth and citrusy note to the finished product. You wanna cook this till it's pretty much completely reduced. Almost like 90%. The pan's practically dry. Go ahead and remove the garlic. Started to brown a little bit, so then I go ahead and add another 2 ounces of heavy cream. Stir that up, and the water from the cream immediately starts evaporating, but this will kind of hold things together. Go ahead and grab myself a stick of butter. I actually want to cut it up beforehand, but I forgot, so just cutting it right now. Just in nice little blocks, keeping it at room temp. And once that's done, just start dropping those butter cubes in and whisk the whole time. Turn the heat down. You don't want the butter to break, you just want it to start kind of bring everything together. You get the garlic flavor, the lemon flavor, the wine. Just gonna end up with a nice, delicious sauce. Just keep whisking the whole time until everything comes together. I'm adding the butter 1 block at a time. Just starts to get melting a little bit, and then add the next block. Doesn't have to melt fully before each addition. This is a pretty small little batch, so just enough for kind of my 2 pieces of salmon, but you can always do a bigger batch if you want to make a lot of Beurre Blanc. Make sure you always taste your food as you go if you can. Just right on, just needs to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. There you have a great Beurre Blanc, just wine, lemon juice, some garlic cloves, and fresh butter. It's gonna go pair great with the salmon I made. Sauce will hold for a few hours if you keep it on a low heat, and just bring it back up and whisk it together to make sure it stays emulsified. And then you can just pour it directly over any protein of your choice. So in this case, our nice salmon. Just a nice, bright, vibrant butter sauce. Decided to throw on a few capers, little flavor bombs if you will, and just really liven up a dish. Now let's go ahead and try the wild-caught salmon with the Beurre Blanc sauce. Just pair beautifully. Got that rich butter, wine, lemon juice, a little bit of capers, get that extra pop of flavor. I'm telling you, if you want some great salmon, this is a great way to do it. If you like this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.